Shalom, my friends. Today I'm going to warn you about two things you should never keep in your home. These two things can destroy your family, ruin your peace, and bring chaos into your life. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what these two things are, why they're so dangerous, and what you should do instead to protect your family and build lasting wealth. Drop a comment below. Have you ever brought something into your home that you later regretted? Something that seemed harmless but ended up causing problems? Let me know your experience. I'm on a mission to reach 50,000 subscribers so I can spread timeless wisdom about wealth, faith, and legacy to even more people. If you believe this wisdom should be shared, hit that subscribe button and join this glowing community of modern thinkers and future millionaires. And if you want to go deeper, become a channel member. You'll get exclusive content, early access to videos, inner circle teachings, and direct access to strategies I don't share publicly. Click the join button below. Now, before I reveal what these two things are, let me tell you why this matters. Your home is not just a physical space. Your home is a spiritual environment. What you allow into your home affects your energy, your mindset, your relationships, and your finances. In the Torah, God gave very specific instructions about what the Israelites should and should not keep in their homes. When they conquered Jericho, God commanded them to destroy everything in the city and not take any of the plunder. But one man, Achan, disobeyed. He took a beautiful robe, some silver and some gold, and he hid them in his tent. What happened? Israel was defeated in their next battle. 36 men died. And when Joshua inquired of God, God revealed that someone had taken forbidden items. Achan and his entire family were destroyed because of what he brought into his home. The lesson: what you allow into your home has consequences, not just for you, but for your entire family. So, what are these two things you should never keep in your home? The first thing is idols or objects of false worship. Now, I know what you're thinking. Rabbi, I'm not worshipping idols. I'm a monotheist. I believe in one God. But here's what most people don't understand. An idol is not just a statue you bow down to. An idol is anything you give power to that takes your focus away from God. In the Torah, God commands, "You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below." This is not just about physical statues. This is about anything you elevate to a place of worship in your life. Money, status, possessions, even relationships. But let me be more specific. There are certain objects that carry spiritual energy, and if you don't know how to manage that energy, they can cause chaos in your home. In Eastern traditions, there are sacred objects like rudraksha beads or shaligram stones. These are considered powerful spiritual tools. But here's the problem. If you don't know how to use them, if you're not living a disciplined, focused, ascetic life, these objects can pull you in a direction that conflicts with your family life. I know a spiritual teacher who had 8 rudraksha beads. People had given them to him or inherited them from their families. And in every case, these families were experiencing chaos, turmoil, and disaster. When he examined the situation, he realized that the Rudraksha beads were the problem. These families didn't know how to manage the energy. So he took the beads and threw them into a river. Now, I'm not saying Rudraksha beads or shaligram stones are evil. I'm saying they're powerful. And if you don't have the discipline, the focus, the awareness to manage that power, they will cause problems. It's like having a power generator in your house, but not knowing how to manage the electricity. Whatever you touch, you'll get shocked. You'll be in constant trouble. The same principle applies to any object you bring into your home that you believe has spiritual power. If you don't know how to manage it, it will manage you, and it will pull you away from your family, your relationships, your responsibilities. In Jewish tradition, we have a similar concept. There are certain objects that are holy and must be treated with reverence. A Torah scroll, for example, is sacred. But if you don't know how to care for it, if you don't treat it with the proper respect, it can bring judgment instead of blessing. The key principle is this: don't bring anything into your home that you don't understand. Don't collect sacred objects just because they seem powerful or mystical. If you deserve such things, they will come to you. But most people don't need them, and most people will only cause themselves harm by keeping them. So, the first thing you should never keep in your home is idols, or objects of false worship, or sacred objects you don't know how to manage. Now, the second thing you should never keep in your home is debt. I know this sounds different from the first one, but hear me out. Debt is a spiritual problem, not just a financial problem. In the book of Proverbs, King Solomon writes, "The borrower is slave to the lender." When you have debt, you are not free, you are enslaved. And that slavery affects every area of your life. Debt steals your peace. Debt steals your joy. Debt steals your freedom. Debt puts pressure on your marriage. Debt causes stress that affects your health. Debt limits your ability to give, to invest, to build wealth. And here's the spiritual dimension. Debt is a form of idolatry. When you go into debt, you're saying, "I can't wait for God to provide. I need this now. I'm going to take it even though I can't afford it." You're putting your trust in credit instead of in God. In the Torah, God commands the Israelites to cancel all debts every 7 years. This is called the Shemitah, or the sabbatical year. Why? Because God doesn't want his people living in perpetual bondage. He wants them free. Debt is bondage. And you should never allow bondage to remain in your home. Now, I'm not saying all debt is bad. There's a difference between good debt and bad debt. A mortgage on a home that's appreciating in value can be good debt. A student loan that enables you to earn a higher income can be good debt. But credit card debt, car loans on depreciating assets, consumer debt for things you don't need, that's bad debt. That's bondage. And you need to get rid of it as fast as possible. So, the second thing you should never keep in your home is debt, especially consumer debt. Now, let me connect these two things, because they're more related than you might think. Both idols and debt represent the same spiritual problem: misplaced trust. When you keep an idol in your home, you're putting your trust in an object instead of in God. When you keep debt in your home, you're putting your trust in credit instead of in God. Both steal your peace. Both cause chaos. Both destroy families. In the story of Achan, what did he take? A beautiful robe, silver and gold. These weren't inherently evil objects, but he took them in disobedience, and he hid them in his tent. And it brought destruction on his entire family. The same thing happens when you bring debt into your home. You're taking something that doesn't belong to you. You're living beyond your means. You're hiding the truth from yourself, and maybe even from your spouse. And it brings destruction. So, what should you do instead? Instead of collecting sacred objects or mystical items, focus on the one thing that truly matters: your relationship with God. In the Torah, God says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength." This is the greatest commandment. Not collecting sacred objects, not seeking mystical experiences, but loving God with everything you have. And instead of accumulating debt, focus on building wealth the right way, living below your means, saving consistently, investing wisely, and trusting God to provide. In the book of Proverbs, King Solomon writes, "Steady plodding brings prosperity. Hasty speculation brings poverty." Don't try to shortcut the process. Don't go into debt to buy things you can't afford. Be patient. Be disciplined. Be faithful. Now, let me give you some practical steps to remove these two things from your home. Step number 1. Remove any objects from your home that you've given spiritual power to. If you have statues, amulets, crystals, or any other objects that you believe have spiritual power, and you're not living a disciplined, focused, ascetic life, get rid of them. Throw them away. Donate them. But don't keep them in your home. In the book of Acts, when the early believers in Ephesus came to faith, they brought their books of magic and burned them publicly. The value of those books was 50,000 drachmas, which was an enormous amount of money. But they didn't care. They knew those objects were pulling them away from God. You need to do the same. If there's anything in your home that's pulling you away from God, from your family, from your purpose, get rid of it. Step number 2. Make a plan to eliminate all consumer debt. List all your debts: credit cards, car loans, personal loans, student loans, everything. Then prioritize them. Pay off the smallest debt first, or pay off the highest interest debt first. But make a plan and stick to it. In the Torah, when the Israelites left Egypt, they left with silver and gold from the Egyptians, but they didn't keep it for themselves. They used it to build the tabernacle, a dwelling place for God. They used their wealth for a higher purpose. You need to do the same. Don't use debt to buy things you don't need. Use your income to eliminate debt, build wealth, and fulfill your purpose. Step number 3. Replace idols and debt with faith and discipline. Instead of seeking mystical objects, seek God. Pray, study the Torah, meditate on His Word, build a relationship with Him. Instead of relying on credit, rely on discipline. Live below your means, save consistently, invest wisely. Trust that God will provide. In the book of Deuteronomy, Moses tells the Israelites, "See, I set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction. Choose life. This is your choice. You can choose idols and debt, which lead to destruction, or you can choose faith and discipline, which lead to life." Now, let me address some objections. Objection number one. "But Rabbi, I inherited this sacred object from my grandmother. It's been in my family for generations. I can't just throw it away." I understand. But here's the question. Is it bringing blessing or chaos? If your family has been experiencing turmoil, financial problems, relationship issues, health problems, and you have a sacred object in your home that you don't know how to manage, it might be the source of the problem. I know families who inherited sacred objects and experienced generations of chaos. When they finally removed the object, everything changed. Peace returned. Prosperity returned. Relationships healed. So yes, it might be hard to let go, but if it's causing harm, you have to let it go. Objection number two. "But Rabbi, I need debt to survive. I can't afford to pay cash for everything." I hear this all the time, and I understand. But here's the truth. You can't afford to stay in debt. Debt is costing you more than you realize. It's costing you interest. It's costing you stress. It's costing you freedom. The goal is not to eliminate all debt overnight. The goal is to make a plan and start moving in the right direction. Pay off one debt, then another, then another. And as you eliminate debt, you'll free up cash flow to invest, to save, to build wealth. Objection number three. "But Rabbi, aren't you being superstitious? How can an object cause problems?" I'm not being superstitious. I'm being spiritual. There is a spiritual dimension to life that most people ignore, and what you allow into your home affects that spiritual dimension. In the Torah, God gave specific instructions about what the Israelites should and should not keep in their homes. He wasn't being arbitrary. He was protecting them from spiritual harm. The same principle applies today. What you allow into your home matters. And if you're experiencing chaos, turmoil, or financial problems, you need to examine what's in your home. So here's my final challenge to you. This week, I want you to do two things. First, walk through your home and identify any objects that you've given spiritual power to. Statues, amulets, crystals, sacred objects you don't understand. And get rid of them. Throw them away, donate them, but don't keep them in your home. Second, make a plan to eliminate all consumer debt. List your debts, prioritize them, and commit to paying off one debt this year, then another next year, and keep going until you're completely debt-free. Do these two things, and I promise you, you will experience more peace, more prosperity, and more blessing in your home. Remember the words of Moses. "See, I set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction. Choose life." Choose to remove idols and debt from your home. Choose to focus on your relationship with God. Choose to live with discipline and faith. And watch as God blesses you beyond what you can imagine. Shalom, And may you be blessed with the wisdom to recognize what doesn't belong in your home, the courage to remove it, the discipline to eliminate debt, and the faith to trust that God will provide everything you need. Now, let me go deeper into why these two things are so destructive and how they're connected to your financial success. First, let's talk about the spiritual principle of focus. In the Torah, God commands, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength." This is called the Shema. It's the central prayer of Judaism. And the key word is one. God is one, and your focus should be one. When you have idols in your home, when you're collecting sacred objects, when you're seeking mystical experiences, you're dividing your focus. You're saying, God is not enough. I need this object. I need this experience. I need this power. And when your focus is divided, your life becomes chaotic. You're pulled in different directions. You can't make clear decisions. You can't move forward with confidence. The same thing happens with debt. When you have debt, your focus is divided. Part of your income goes to the lender. Part of your mental energy goes to worrying about payments. Part of your emotional energy goes to stress and anxiety. You can't focus on building wealth when you're drowning in debt. You can't focus on your purpose when you're enslaved to creditors. In the book of Proverbs, King Solomon writes, "A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways." When your focus is divided, you're unstable. You can't build anything lasting. So the first reason to remove idols and debt from your home is they divide your focus and make you unstable. Second, let's talk about the principle of energy. Everything in the universe is energy. Your thoughts are energy. Your emotions are energy. Your words are energy. And physical objects carry energy. When you bring an object into your home, you're bringing its energy into your space. If it's a sacred object that carries powerful spiritual energy, and you don't know how to manage that energy, it will affect you. It's like bringing a wild animal into your home. It might be beautiful, it might be powerful, but if you don't know how to train it, it will cause chaos. The same principle applies to debt. Debt carries negative energy. It's energy of bondage, of slavery, of stress. And when you keep debt in your home, you're keeping that negative energy in your space. Every time you see a bill, you feel stress. Every time you think about your debt, you feel anxiety. That negative energy affects your mood, your relationships, your health, your decision-making. In Kabbalah, there is a teaching that your home should be a mikdash me'at, a miniature sanctuary. It should be a place of peace, of holiness, of blessing. But you can't have a sanctuary if you're filling it with objects and energies that bring chaos. So the second reason to remove idols and debt from your home is they bring negative energy that affects every area of your life. Third, let's talk about the principle of trust. In the Torah, God repeatedly tells the Israelites, "Trust me. I will provide. I will protect. I will bless." But the Israelites struggled with trust. They kept turning to idols. They kept relying on their own strength instead of trusting God. When you keep idols in your home, you're saying, "I don't fully trust God. I need this backup. I need this extra power. I need this insurance policy." When you keep debt in your home, you're saying, "I don't fully trust God to provide. I can't wait. I need this now. I'll figure out how to pay for it later." Both are expressions of mistrust, and mistrust blocks blessing. In the book of Malachi, God says, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." God is inviting you to trust Him, to test Him, to see if He will provide. But you can't test Him if you're relying on idols or debt. So the third reason to remove idols and debt from your home is they represent mistrust, and mistrust blocks blessing. Now, let me give you some advanced strategies for creating a home environment that attracts wealth and blessing instead of chaos and bondage. Advanced strategy number 1. Create a sacred space for prayer and meditation. Instead of filling your home with mystical objects, create one dedicated space for connecting with God. It could be a corner of your bedroom. It could be a chair by a window. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but make it a place where you go every day to pray, to meditate, to read the Torah, to connect with God. This becomes your spiritual anchor. This is where you realign your focus, release your stress, and receive guidance. In the Torah, God commanded the Israelites to build a tabernacle, a dwelling place for His presence. You need to create a miniature tabernacle in your home, a place where God's presence dwells. Advanced strategy number 2. Practice the principle of enough. In the Torah, when the Israelites were in the desert, God provided manna every day. But He gave specific instructions. Gather only what you need for today. Don't try to hoard it. If you gather more than you need, it will rot. This is the principle of enough. You don't need more than enough. You don't need to accumulate. You don't need to hoard. When you practice this principle, you eliminate the temptation to go into debt. You don't buy things you don't need. You don't try to keep up with the Joneses. You're content with enough. And when you're content with enough, you free up resources to invest, to save, to give, to build wealth. Advanced strategy number 3. Implement the debt snowball method. If you have multiple debts, the debt snowball method is the fastest way to eliminate them. Here's how it works. List all your debts from smallest to largest. Pay minimum payments on all of them except the smallest. Attack the smallest debt with everything you have. When it's paid off, take that payment and add it to the next smallest debt. Keep going until all your debts are paid off. Why does this work? Because it gives you quick wins. When you pay off that first debt, you feel momentum, you feel hope, you feel empowered. And that emotional energy carries you through the rest of the journey. In the Torah, when the Israelites crossed the Jordan River into the Promised Land, God told them to set up 12 stones as a memorial. Why? So that when future generations asked, "What do these stones mean?" they could tell the story of how God brought them across. The debt snowball method creates memorials. Every debt you pay off is a stone. It's a reminder of how far you've come. It's proof that you can do this. Advanced strategy number 4. Replace consumer spending with value creation. Most people spend their money on things that depreciate: cars, clothes, electronics, entertainment. These things lose value the moment you buy them. But wealthy people spend their money on things that appreciate or create value. Education, skills, investments, businesses. These things increase in value over time. In the parable of the talents, the servants who invested and multiplied their money were praised. The servant who buried his money was condemned. You need to shift from consumer spending to value creation. Instead of buying a new car, invest in a course that teaches you a high-value skill. Instead of going on an expensive vacation, invest in starting a side business. Instead of upgrading your wardrobe,